Chapter 9. A First New Monroe with Tashi on the island of Mull. Tashi is remarkably well behaved on the ferry crossing from Oban over to the island of Mull, and an adverse mountain weather report already has his human companions discussing a change of plan. Now, for some time, I have harboured dark suspicions about the dump truck, and the unusual frequency of inclement weather when he's around. Well, I reckon we should just dump our gear at the campsite, and then head off and do Benmore today. Looks like we could be rained off Monday and Tuesday, and I want to see the views. This is going to be a special hill for me and Tashi.
Well, we better make sure we bag the big bastard then.
That's settled. We sort out the camping situation, then we head straight off to the hill. Why are you smiling, Davy?
I'm not the one sharing his tent with Tashi, mate.
Well, the campsite does have luxury berths with ensuite facilities. Maybe we should look into that with this bad weather forecast, I say, indicating my brochure.
Quite reasonable price-wise. Might be worth taking a look.
Now, I'm not a fan of smash-and-grab tactics where Monroes are concerned. I consider myself to be more of a connoisseur than a ruthless, single-minded bagger like the dump truck. My friend is a great source of motivation, but for some time I have been harbouring samsaric delusions that the dump truck is a weather Jonah. We always seem to experience extremes of one kind of another, and usually wet and windy ones, with the occasional winter blizzard thrown in just for good measure. Today we have a brief calm before the storm is due to arrive, which means only one thing: midges. Now, the dump truck used to be quite disrespectful, and almost blasé about these insect vampires. Not anymore.
In the name of the wee man, has that dump truck boy got something up with his bladder? And he could have picked a better spot to lift his legs, surely. Anybody can see him standing there.
That's not what he's doing, Tashi. He's in the progress of gearing up for the first combat sortie from Attila the Midge and his legions of insect vampires.
Well, just get him to get a move on. We've not got all day here. And how come you're no gearing up, big un? I thought you despised the midges.
Entirely pointless, Tashi. And besides, I usually drown them with copious sweat. Recently, I have started talking to Tashi, and I hardly notice that I'm doing it anymore. I will have to be careful about that when the dump truck is in earshot. He joins us at our stand soon enough, and the blasted midges have now found us. We will have to shake them off with some fancy leg work.
As you know, I used to wonder what all the fuss were about, until Mick and I went into Letterwee to do them Fisherfield Monroes.
Oh, the midges love it up there, man. Must be close to the ideal habitat for them, I comment sympathetically.
There were black clouds of the little fuckers everywhere. You didn't dare stop unless you were having a snout.
This ubiquitous expression can sometimes mean fag.
Even then it weren't too pleasant. We were forced to have all our Gore-Tex gear on at night, just for protection. Course, those repellents were fuck all use. Mick reckoned they just attracted them.
Did you stay in the bothy at Chenaval? I asked, puffing a little at the pace.
The bothy were a bit in the crowded side like, but it was definitely my first choice. Mick prefers camping, so he had a tent with us like. But there were no way I was camping. Mick tried it though. He can be a stubborn bastard, but even he didn't last the whole night.
In my experience, an island shelter affords little comfort where midges are concerned.
They were so bad, one youth even pitched his tent inside the bothy. He said it were a bit warm inside like, but that were better than being devoured by midges.
We opt for the trade route, reasoning if the weather holds we can descend by the more interesting and entertaining ridge. Smash and grab technique. Get yourself up by the easiest route and then see what happens once you're there. The path meanders up alongside a delightful little stream. Tashi is on his lead, until I am sure we will not be encountering any sheep.
Oh, come on, Two Legs. Let us after lead. There's none of these fluffy white dogs about, and I promise to be a wee angel.
By the time we reach the summit of Ben More, the mists have moved into Cloquet. The highest point in Mull is a stony, desolate place, and there is now little or no enthusiasm in our party for trying to locate the more interesting ridge to descend by, and even the mighty Tash is a little subdued. He perks up after eating most of my gammon sandwiches, though. Now, so far, the dump truck has shown considerable restraint, and has not yet made any mention of the magnificent ascendancy he holds over me in this Munro bagging game. I may have climbed more Munros than him, but he is one in his collection that has so far eluded me. The dump truck can't resist the temptation any longer, and he casually asks me a question that he already knows the answer to, and that I know has been coming since we left Glasgow.
So have you done it yet, Dave?
In case you haven't guessed already, he is referring to the inaccessible pinnacle in Skye.
I heard they gone and demoted Sgurr Derg. Now, that were your only crumb of comfort from that day, weren't it?
I sulk in sullen silence and let him continue, which he would have done regardless of anything I might say.
The climbing were actually the easy bit, except for that one awkward bit near the top, like. If you remember, that's where Vanessa got stuck. I were clinging on to these small holds for what seemed like ages.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't up there. I might have been tempted to cut her loose and then call it justifiable homicide.
Crossed my mind, but I had a rear end stuck in me face, so my options were kinda limited at the time.
So is there much room on top then? I have asked this question hundreds of times or more over the years, and it has become a part of this ritual.
Enough for people to move around, like. Martin had us all tethered to this big rock, while he set up the ropes to lower us off. Now, I don't mind saying it, I had me eyes closed most of the time I were up there.
I try to change the subject. Do you mind taking a picture of me and Tashi? This is a special Munro for us. Ben More is Tashi's 10th Munro, and the first new one that we've done together. The others have been repeats for me, and I was very familiar with the route, so they were often done in bad weather. I did Ben Wyvis with the dump truck a few years back. Predictably, the weather was favourable when we started out, and really quite delightful by the time we got back down again. In between, the weather Jonah struck, and we had a white-out blizzard on the plateau. A challenging day, as they say. I had my new GPS with me. I marked waypoints with it as we struggled from Ancabar to the summit of our Munro. I knew that unless things changed, we'd be retracing our steps immediately, rather than exploring the many Munro tops on offer. And these waypoints would make that process much easier than using a map and compass to leapfrog back. A year later, I returned to Ben Wyvis in a long day trip with Anna and Tashi, and I was hoping the weather gods would shine us, but they didn't. Tashi and Anna bagged their new Munro, and we saw nothing from Ancabar onwards. There was a real hoolie of a gale blowing through, and it was fairly roaring in the great corries beneath us. Tashi loved it. The young never noticed bad weather. Trudging back down from the summit of Ben More, we emerge from the mists, and I make the unwelcome discovery that I have left my new trekking pole on top. I am considering leaving it there for a lucky walker to find, when the dump truck volunteers to return to the summit and retrieve it for me. I don't refuse this unexpected offer. As Tashi and I watch him disappear back into the mists, I am truly touched by my old friend's gesture. I am a good decade older than him, and my legs aren't as strong as they once were. As I sit with Tashi meditating on the view and sky gazing, I am supremely happy to be here. Tashi and I have climbed our first new Munro together. Don't worry, my bonny wee man. It's just the first of many more to come. You and I have some big mountain days ahead of us. I like talking to Tashi, as he always listens attentively. I did not know, as we shared those happy moments together, waiting for my old mate to return, that Tashi and I would never climb another new Munro together. There would be several expeditions and aborted attempts in the years to come, but we would not reach a summit.
Oh, glad we opted for the luxury berth, mate,
the dump truck comments when he returns with my pole. He indicates the approaching weather front with it, and a light drizzle immediately comes on. I reckon we should make it back to my trusty old VW before we feel its full force. But it's going to be a very wet and windy night. Thank God we won't be camping out in the tents.
I'm with you on that one, mountain boy. A bit of comfort after a hard day in the hill is preferable to an uncomfortable night in a tent with me. I can't stand tents.
You made that very clear to me, Tashi.
What's that, Dave?
Just talking to Tashi.